Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question was suggested by a viewer. Thanks to Pickle Yama for this one. Amy plays a crib swap against Nick's Grizzly Bears. Nick wants to save his Grizzly Bears. Can he do this by playing a Thraben Exorcism to exile the crib swap? Okay, so there is a slight complication if Nick wants to try to do this, and it's not because of the fact that the word spirit doesn't actually physically appear on the crib swap. Turns out that Changeling is a characteristic defining ability, and one of the special rules regarding characteristic defining abilities is that they work in every zone, even outside the game. So that would mean, for example, it would be possible to coax a crib swap from the Blind Eternities, no matter whether it was in your sideboard or in the exile zone, and that's possible because it does count as an Eldrazi even when it's outside the game. So that trick would work, and that's not going to be any obstacle at all to what Nick's trying to do. The problem also does not come from the fact that the Thraben Exorcism says to exile the spirit rather than counter it. It is possible to exile a spell, and that does basically the same thing as countering it, as our friend the on-theme spell queller can attest to. So what is the issue? And in order to bring that out, I want to talk about another very similar problem that we see with another card. So let's say that we wanted to play a Thraben Exorcism against Ugin the Spirit Dragon. Would this be possible? And the answer to that is unfortunately no. And the reason is because of this rule right here, which says that anytime you see a description of an object that uses a card type or subtype, and you don't see attached to that description the special words card, spell, source, or scheme, well, that means that that description specifically refers to a permanent that has that card type or subtype on the battlefield. So if we take a look at Ugin, we'll notice that its type line does not use the word spirit at all, and so that means that the game does not consider it to be a spirit for the purposes of deciding targets of Thraben Exorcism, despite the fact that it clearly says right in the card name that Ugin is in fact a spirit. There's actually a couple of other really hilarious rulings involving the same principle and the fact that Ugin the Spirit Dragon doesn't technically count as either a spirit or a dragon, and I made a video about that a while ago. You can check that out if you're interested. So that's the answer to our question that we were considering in the problem statement before. Because we have the exact same problem here, that being the Thraben Exorcism only can target spirits that are on the battlefield, and the crib swap is not a spirit permanent on the battlefield, well, that means that it is not possible for Nick to make this play that he was hoping for. Bad beats, Nick. If we wanted this play to work, we would need to see templating sort of like what we see on Hisoka's Defiance in order for this to happen. Notice how Hisoka's Defiance says that it can target a spirit spell, because it does use one of those 4 magical words. That means we're not talking about a spirit that's on the battlefield, we're talking about a spirit spell. So you would be able to use Hisoka's Defiance to counter a crib swap, because again, crib swap does count as a spirit while it's on the stack, since the Changeling ability functions in all zones. Another really cool example that uses the same principle that you might want to check out if you're still having a little bit of trouble grasping this concept would be this card here, Geistlight Snare. So what do you think? Would it be possible for you to pay 1 less with the Geistlight Snare if you controlled an enchantment spell? Pretty much nobody thinks the answer to that question should be yes, and indeed, the answer is that enchantment spells do not help you reduce the cost of this card. Only enchantment permanents on the battlefield, and for that matter, spirit permanents on the battlefield would. And the answer is exactly the same. However, conceptually, it's a lot easier to wrap your head around that. I think probably because you don't see enchantments or other card types being used in the same way quite as often or on quite as many types of card effects. So the juxtaposition makes it really stand out a lot more. But that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.